Okay. Great. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I know that more folks might be jumping in. If we can go to the next slide, Dustin. I just want to remind folks that we do have closed captioning on Zoom, and probably most of you are familiar with that at this point. But if you need help finding it, check out, if you're on your computer, your toolbar on the bottom right-hand side next to the breakout rooms. It should be there. And if you're joining from a mobile device, you have to press the three dots, and then several functions will show up, including selecting going to meetings, and then you select meetings, and then go select show closed captioning, and closed captioning should appear for you. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, great. So I think as most folks on the call right now know, my name is Mustafa. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Director of Campaigns and Strategies, and I live in DC. Let me just give a moment to Brittany and Dustin to say hi as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Baker. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Maryland Director.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Dustin Branch. I'm the Central Maryland Coordinator. You may have heard a lot from me regarding our lobby team. I use he, him pronouns, and I live in Mount Vernon, Baltimore.
So we want to invite folks to introduce yourself in the chat when you have a moment. But for tonight, we're going to be talking about the legislative, giving our legislative updates. It's post crossover since yesterday. So there's been a lot that's been happening with our legislative priorities. So you'll hear from Brittany and have an opportunity to ask questions. And then we're going to do a report out on our lobby nights. We'll talk to you about what's happening with our Fossil Free Fridays as well, along with our phone banking program, and talk about what things you can do to get more involved through the next few weeks to the end of session. And then we're going to write postcards together, postcards to your legislators. So can we go to the next slide? Okay, I'm going to pass it to Brittany to talk us through legislative updates.
Thank you, Mustafa. And first, let me say, I just want to give a big shout out to my organizing team and to all of you on the call, because even though, I'm the closest on the ground in terms of what's happening in Annapolis, you all are the power that gives my words any punch. Without, really good organizing and a really strong base, it really doesn't matter what we have to say on these bills. So thank you for continuing to support the work. And so in terms of legislative updates, first I'll start off with the leadership energy package. So this year we went into legislative session with our own set of priorities, but particularly because the utility bills were super high all across the state in winter of 2024. The conversation around energy and climate and how to move forward has been a lot larger, involving a lot more stakeholders than usual this year. And so legislative leadership, both from the House and the Senate, have come up with their own package of what they think will lower utility bills and allow us to move into the clean energy future. And that set of bills has 3 bills. So 2 of them we see on the screen, the Next Generation Energy Act and also the Renewable Energy Certainty Act. There's another bill in the package called, I think it's called the Energy Resource Planning Board. And that's a part of the Leadership Energy Package package as well. But to zoom in, we can start off just talking about these two bills because there's a lot of advocacy work that needs to happen around these two. So I'll start off with the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, which is sponsored by Senator Feldman and Delegate C.T. Wilson. And what that bill does is it standardizes solar and battery storage siting requirements across the state. Now, it is still under negotiation because, in particular, some areas like rural areas are opponents of the bill, and also Maryland Association of Counties is against the bill because it really streamlines things. It removes red tape in terms of solar and battery storage. And so we're favorable on the bill. It also enables local governments to do automatic enrollment of community solar programs. So, for example, if Tacoma Park, Maryland put solar panels across its entire roof of its new library and decided, okay, we want to offer that our multifamily buildings on Maple Avenue, people can automatically be enrolled into the community solar that's provided at the top of our library roof. It enables a program like that. And then also it's set up some state level supports to ensure that rooftop solar companies aren't operating fly by night and aren't putting households in unnecessary jeopardy. So we really like this bill, and we've been working really hard to show the delegate and senator that we really support the idea and want to support them in this conversation. And we need to send more love and more support so that this bill gets over the finish line with as few amendments as possible. But on the other side of things, the Next Generation Energy Act. So that bill, Mustafa, should I answer questions as I see them popping up, or would you like me to wait to the end?
If it doesn't interrupt your flow, you're welcome to make that choice if you'd like to answer them, but we'll also have a Q&A at the end.
Okay, so I do want to clarify automatic enrollment. So for example, right now, wherever you live, you're a captive utility customer. Whenever you move into your house or move into your rental, you're automatically assigned to be a part of that company's customer base. Automatic enrollment of community solar would mean that a local entity, whether that's a local government or a county level or at the city level, if they had the resources for a certain area that a certain number of households in a certain geographic area could all be covered by a community solar project, then they could automatically enroll you in that based on your, literal household. And so in the same way that we move into a house and then we sign up for our Pepco ID number, they would instead be able to say, okay, this house is assigned this community solar ID number, and you will be automatically enrolled. So that's what that means. But going back to the Next Generation Energy Act. So the Next Generation Energy Act has a lot of provisions in it. It does some things to encourage nuclear procurement at the state level, but it does have some reasonable ratepayer protections around that. I can't even think of all the other things that the Next Generation Energy Act does, because the biggest thing that it does as drafted is it fast tracks new gas generation in state. And so we have been aggressively forwardly fighting that because we don't think there's any modeling that suggests that we need new gas generation in the state. That's the most expensive, most polluting, and one of the slowest ways to bring in new electrons in our state. And really, it sets up a situation where there's lack of parity because we have so many battery storage, wind, and solar opportunities that are coming out of our scheduled to come online in our state in the next couple of years. And fast tracking new gas is just not what should be done. So the organizing team has been doing a great job with the Fossil Free Fridays to make sure legislators know that we are against this gas provision in the bill. We've been doing a lot of lobbying to ensure that legislators stakeholders know that we are against those provisions in the bill, and we've been working really diligently with coalition partners such as Maryland LCV and Maryland Sierra Club to ensure that everyone knows that the gas provisions in the bill aren't a good idea and that they should be weakened. But the interesting, as far as updates on the bill, something that's been a really interesting development over the last couple of weeks. So none of the leadership energy package made it to another chamber before crossover, but everyone has been saying that that would happen because we know that this is such a big conversation involving so many stakeholders that are negotiating. And so part of the negotiations is some of the other great ideas that have been presented this year in terms of energy. For example, reforming the STRIDE program, which gas utilities have been using to get an accelerated rate of return on new gas infrastructure. They're considering adding that as an amendment on the Next Generation Energy Act. Or, for example, removing trash incineration for the RPS. I mean, that's been a standalone bill that's been considered by the legislature for maybe 3 or 4 years now. And now, instead of passing that as a standalone bill, they're also considering putting that into the Next Generation Energy Act. And last but not least, one of the bills that we love and we've been supporting, the Abundant, Affordable, Clean Energy Act by Delegate Charkoudian and Senator Brooks, they're considering taking a lot of those provisions out of the ACE Act, which will not be passing as a standalone bill, and putting those into Next Generation Energy Act as well. So it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of days as we get closer to the end of session, seeing what items are firmly amended to the bill and seeing if they're able to weaken the gas provisions in the bill. All right, next slide. Okay, so I just gave the update on the Abundant, Affordable, Clean Energy Act. As I said, the amendments will be added to the Next Generation Energy Act, but also the solar SREC reform that was in the Abundant, Affordable, Clean Energy Act. That's actually more likely to be amended onto the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, since that bill deals more closely with the solar industry. And last but not least, there's a provision in ACE to change the offshore wind planning task, because right now, well, in the Power Act, there was a provision that said we need to plan on how we're going to get the coordinated transmission infrastructure from our offshore wind projects into the state. And so the ACE had a provision to say, okay, and when we're figuring out how to do that, we need to make sure we do it in a way that solves Maryland load problems. And so that provision is likely to get onto the planning bill. That's the third bill on the leadership package. And so the only provision in ACE that currently isn't being discussed as an amendment onto the leadership package is the zero emissions credit that was designed for Calvert Cliffs to keep it online and ensure that Calvert Cliffs stays financial when they are up for relicensing in 2034 and 2036. But fortunately, they probably don't need that anyway. So we'll see. They haven't been advocating very hard for that provision, and so it's kind of being left to the wayside. Okay, so Better Buildings Act. Better Buildings Act is probably our least successful conversation, but the bill is not dead yet. So it did not pass a chamber before crossover. However, we have been hearing from leaders in the Environment and Transportation Committee that they're considering moving this bill after crossover, not the bill as drafted, but some compromise version of the bill. And the piece that is most interesting to the committee is the idea that because there has been a lot of work, a lot of coordination of stakeholders, a lot of work done by Maryland Department of Environment to finalize the building energy performance standards. And those standards are greenhouse gas emissions reductions and electrification standards for buildings over 35,000 square feet. But one interesting case that is so material for us who are going to Annapolis every day, the new Department of Legislative Services building that is constructed literally on the government campus is not a BEPS. That building does not meet the BEPS requirements for 2040. So at some point, even though that building literally was completed last year, they will need renovations to meet the BEPS requirements. And so the committee is very interested in passing some legislation that will say any building that will be covered by BEPS in the future needs to go ahead and be constructed with 2040 BEPS standards. And so we're thinking that because that is so dear to the committee right now, we'll be able to help support that a bill with that language to be passed, and also to attach some language related to all buildings, specifically because the governor and his team have been working really diligently on the Housing for Jobs Act, which will encourage new construction in areas where there's a lot of jobs in the state. But if we're going to be really incentivizing new construction, we also should be incentivizing new fully electric construction. And so we're hoping that we can get some provisions passed that will at least require buildings to be electric ready. So we'll see. I'll have another update on that at our next monthly membership meeting. All right, to the last slide. So the Renew Act conversation has gone really well this year. You know, of course, there have been some hiccups and some disappointments. For example, originally the bill as drafted had the study piece and the enforcement piece, but now the bill has been focused in to that study piece, and that started on the Senate side. And so now the bill what it does is it requires the comptroller to lead the study that's needed to hold the largest, most polluting fossil fuel companies accountable. That study will have a due date of December 1st, 2026. And in that study, there will be a cost calculation of impacts of climate change in Maryland. And so it will be the first study of its kind in our state, and really the second study nationally of its kind, because Vermont set up their climate superfund bill in the same way. And so they're also in the study phase of figuring out how much is our state hurting from the effects of climate change. And so we're really excited that we're starting this first step. And legislators are really seeming to be excited about this and fully on board. In fact, I will speak to that, Michael. In fact, it was so interesting to see on the House side, the House Economic Matters Committee passed their version of the study bill on a Saturday. And then Sunday, there was a break. And then on Monday, it passed the second committee, second reader and third reader, all without any debate, any negative conversation on the floor. It just flew out of the House with really no hiccups. So we're feeling really good about the Renew Act, and we're glad that we have this study piece with a lot of people on board. But Michael asks, you know, what is the impact of this being a study bill as opposed to the full bill as drafted? It does mean that in 2027, we will have to come back to the legislature and ask them to pass the enforcement piece of the bill. And that is more work than we had envisioned. But especially right now with the federal chaos that we're seeing, and also with the lawsuits that have happened in Vermont and New York related to their climate superfund bills, and also with some feedback from our coalition partners at NRDC, they said it is best when your enforcement bill has the total assessment number in the bill. And so, even though usually when your bill is reduced to a study, that's like a major loss, we are not viewing this as a loss. We're just viewing this as now we have a lengthened campaign, and our final enforcement bill will be a lot more legally sound. Alrighty, so I believe the next slide is just remaining legislative calendar. Yes. So right now, the largest conversation that's happening in the legislature is the budget conversation. Oh, that's a good question, Jim. I'll get to that. The biggest conversation is the budget. We're expecting that they're going to finalize the budget, and not until after that has been accomplished will they bring the leadership energy package to in either of the chambers. But leadership is having those conversations now, but it's just not a whole chamber conversation yet. But we're getting really close to the end. I mean, April 7th is sine die. So I'm really feeling that what can we expect with things, especially the leadership bill, expect that it's going to be, the negotiations are going to be happening to the very last minute for sure. All right, now the next slide is FAQ, and I'll start with, I believe it was Jim's question, what's happening with the bottle bill? So, Maryland Sierra Club has the bottle bill as one of their primary priorities. We're supportive of the bottle bill, but it is not one of our primary priorities, but this is the intel that I have. I believe that they thought it would pass the House before it passed the Senate. The Senate actually, I'm pretty sure, passed the Extended Producer Responsibility Bill, which was kind of the competitive bill against the bottle bill. And they thought it would fly out of the House, but it did pass Environment and Transportation, but it was double assigned, just like the Renew Act. And it's held up in the Economic Matters Committee. So it did not pass the House before crossover, and I do not believe it passed the Senate before crossover, but I wouldn't want to say that it's dead. I would say if you really want a status update on that, email me so I can double check my intel with my partners at Sierra Club. They might have better intel than I do, but as far as I know, it didn't pass any chamber before crossover. I saw another person had a question. What are we talking about in terms of a study-only version bill? We're speaking of the Renew Act. The Renew Act was drafted this year as first executing the study to quantify the cost impacts of climate change in Maryland, and then automatically charging that total number to the largest, most polluting fossil fuel companies. But the legislators, lawmakers felt more comfortable with doing the study piece first. And then once we have that number back from the study, starting the enforcement campaign. So we're going with the study for now. Any other questions? I think you can come off mute if you have a question, or you can put it in the chat.
Brittany, can you just give a top line reminder about the status of no new gas? I think we had a few folks join a little late and missed that.
Sure. So the top line on no new gas is we have to continue to hammer home that message in a big way, because the worst thing that could happen is, the absolute worst thing that can happen, it would be for the negotiations to happen, and then legislators who are really friendly with gas utilities decide to make a new gas plant that is rate-based. And so we really want to hammer home the idea that, number one, we don't need new gas. And then also, we don't want new fossil fuels to be getting automatic air and water permits and be waived of all of their community and local government participation requirements as their reward for participating in an expedited request for proposals that will start October 1st. And then also, we don't want any other type of amendments on the, at least related to the gas, that will make it even more likely that a new gas generation facility will be built in Maryland.
Great. Next question is from Melanie. Just where can I learn more about community solar? Do you have any suggestions, Brittany?
My suggestion is to look up Groundswell. They have really good community solar programs. And also, actually, I can't think of the other company. Email me and I'll send you some resources.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
And Aaron's asking if the Reclaim Renewable Energy Act gets folded into the Next Generation Energy Act, how would CCAN respond? It would be unfortunate if other important environmental legislation gets tied to Next Gen.
Yeah, so that's a discussion we've been having lately. How will we respond? I mean, at the end of the day, our position is the same. We think battery storage is very necessary for Maryland. We think taking reforming the STRIDE program is going to lower utility bills. We think new gas generation is a bad idea. And so right now we're very focused on keeping that messaging and not necessarily prioritizing, pivoting on how we're going to message to the bill as a whole. But we'll have to see what happens as we get closer to the end of legislative session. I mean, I don't see a pathway right now that we would ever say, oh, Next Generation Energy Act was such a great bill. I think we'll always have to talk about this bill by its constituent parts.
Yeah. From Joanna, what is the status of the Transportation and Climate Alignment Bill?
Transportation and climate alignment is alive and well. I believe it passed the House first. I'm not sure if it's passed the Senate as well, but it's definitely still in the game.
And then Linda's asking, what days is CCAN physically in Annapolis? I'd like to show up. We'll talk more about that, Linda, but we have our Fossil-Free Fridays, so we're there gathering with volunteers from 10 to 12 on Fridays. Great. Sorry, Dustin, just saw you answered that. Okay, I think we got maybe two or three more questions. Brittany, do you have time for that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yes.
Great.
Really quickly, okay. Mustafa, Liz Beckman said Neighborhood Sun. Yes, that was the company I was thinking of. That's the other very excellent community solar company.
And Jim's asking what our position was on the nuclear plants part of the Next Generation Energy Act, and just asking if we care about those.
Sure. Thanks for asking, Jim. So CCAN believes that nuclear energy will be a part of Maryland's future, at least in the near term, in terms of carbon-free energy. Right now, nuclear energy from Calvert Cliffs covers about 40% of our energy needs in the state and about 80% of our carbon-free energy in the state. So when it comes to the next generation energy nuclear provisions, one thing that we can appreciate is it has some common sense ratepayer protections. For example, the nuclear procurement that is set up in the bill doesn't charge ratepayers a penny until electrons are being delivered to the grid. And so that is important. But overall, we're relatively neutral to the nuclear provisions in the Next Generation Energy Act. We don't necessarily think that they're a great idea, but we also don't think that they're terrible.
Great.
And did we get to Annie and Bill? I saw your hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been so focused on the chat. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know that in Delegate Charkoudian's bill, there were, and aside from the battery development provisions, which is great that that goes into next generation, but it also had provisions for reforming the priority by which utilities purchase RECs of different types. And I think it was set up to encourage the production, to encourage the development of solar and offshore wind. And I'm not sure if that's a possibility of that getting amended into the leadership's bill.
Thank you for asking that. I actually haven't heard about the status of the, I'll call it the waterfall provision that Delegate Charkoudian created that prioritized which RECs utilities need to purchase to focus on purchasing RECs that are incentivizing new clean energy construction. I need to check up on that piece, but the solar renewable energy credit reform is being spoken of as potentially being added to the Renewable Energy Certainty Act.
And offshore, I mean, because that's probably risky
Well,
now.
the offshore wind provision in ACE was just a planning amendment to ensure that as we plan for the transmission, that we would prioritize solving Maryland load challenges. There were no other offshore wind provisions in the bill.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And there was one more question, right? Is that correct, Dustin? Somebody.
Mustafa, are we good? Does
I
anyone have
think
any
we're
more
good.
questions? All right. So if you
I have if you have another
yes,
second,
Melanie,
a
go
question
ahead.
for Mustafa. You had put in the chat a link to these bills, but I came across like I had to request access.
That is strange because it says that, okay.
I mean, I can try again. Maybe something went wrong.
No, I see that, but it should be.
We'll also send
Okay,
all of
this
these
time it
materials.
came up.
Yeah.
Really quickly,
looks like
thank
I
you
got it this
everyone for
time.
your advocacy and for staying plugged in. We're definitely going to need you until the very end. So I put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out with any questions, any advocacy concerns. And again, I just really appreciate your participation. Talk soon, everyone.
Right. Thank you, Brittany.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go over our lobby night. So about a month ago, we had our largest lobby night ever with over 100 attendees packing the House and the Senate. I came up with that. That's my favorite pun. So you'll hear it at least 10 more times before Sine Die. But we packed the House and Senate with volunteer lobbyists meeting with their elected officials. We had 35 out of 47 legislative districts represented. So volunteers, and some of you were there that night. You met not just with legislators, but also with their staff on critical climate legislation like the Renew Act, Better Buildings Act, ACE, and to demand no new gas plants in Maryland. And not only were these meetings impactful on their face, but they also gave us valuable insight into where legislators stood on the issues. So in your lobby reports after the meeting, everyone filled out a lobby report for us to tell us how it went, any ongoing questions that the legislator had, that you had, just anything that stood out to our volunteer lobbyists. And our team internally, we looked at those reports, and in our continuing conversations with each of those legislators, that really opened up the door for a lot of what we're doing and the progress that we've already seen following crossover. Brittany, I don't know if you're still online, but just about every time that I'm in Annapolis, Brittany's there, and when I'm not in Annapolis, Brittany is still there. And Jamie as well, which is really, really excellent, and just not just keeping up the pressure, but continuing that conversation. Throughout legislative session, elected officials, they hear from lobbyists, they hear from advocates pretty much every single day. But when you have a lot of these priorities also being talked about by their very own constituents, people who have that pre-existing relationship with them a lot of the time, that is really, really huge. And that's why we're seeing a lot of this progress on our priorities. It doesn't always turn out the way that we like with the Renew Act study and with different bills that we wanted to see passed, getting folded into other bills, but we are still making very good progress toward our goals. One of the big things that we're hearing is, hey, I got enough postcards, I got enough phone calls, enough emails, I know, I get it. And that's awesome. So we are definitely getting noticed, and it's that continuous advocacy that is really making change possible. So I want to go over to our Fossil-Free Friday. So following up from Lobby Night, we have every single Friday until Sine Die, our Fossil-Free Fridays, where we are gathering on Lawyers Mall to demand no new gas plants here in Maryland. And I'd like to pass it over to you, Mustafa, to talk a little bit more about what we do and what we're doing this Friday at 10 a.m.
Yeah, so this Friday we are going to be gathering just outside of Lawyers Mall, in front of Lawyers Mall, and we will gather to send people off into teams to go do literature drops in the lobby legislative offices. We will have literature, particularly on a new study that was done by the Office of the People's Counsel that basically shows with the already approved infrastructure that's being built out, including a new transmission line from Pennsylvania, that the worst case scenario is that we could meet energy demand, anticipated energy demand, at least until 2042. And so we will have the literature on that study, which backs up that we don't need this gas plant. And then we'll have some sandwiches or tacos that we'll have there as well, and folks will be able to write postcards to the legislators, and you can also take any of the literature that we have back to your communities and your networks and get other folks to be taking action. We're not going to do so much of a rally this time because unfortunately, even though we had been approved, the Capitol Police made a mistake, and somebody else had previously reserved Lawyers Mall for the same time. So we will not do a rally this Friday, but we will continue the rallies in the following Fridays leading up to April 7th. Yeah, I want to invite anybody who might be on the call who's participated in this just to say a word about what it's been like showing up. If anybody would like to come off mute, you are welcome to share that. And it's also totally okay if not. We can come back to this if you decide later that you would like to do that. You're welcome. Okay. And so I'll send out the link to our Fossil Free Fridays and our email after that will go out tomorrow morning. I'll also put it in the chat in just a moment. We can go to the next slide, and maybe we'll just spend a minute, Dustin, on the phone banking, and then talk about, let's just go right into our postcard writing. Dustin, you are muted. Dustin, you're muted.
How's it going, everyone? Sorry about that. So since the start of legislative session, we started our Climate Champs phone banking program with folks all over the country, primarily concentrated in Maryland, making almost 5,000 phone calls to voters in targeted districts. We meet every single week, Monday and Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And to give you all enough time to get home from work, whatever you need to do, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to meet virtually. Going to send you a Zoom link, but Mustafa just put in a Mobilize link in the chat for you to sign up. We're going to have shifts going on every single week. Pass it back to you, Mustafa.
Okay. Yeah, we will include this in the follow-up email. But the main thing is phone banking, doing relational petitioning. So that means, like, you know, we'll share with you in the follow-up email all the links to petitioning for solar, petitioning for no new gas, and you know, you can reach out to your own networks and ask them to sign up, and it will continue to add more folks to our petitions, but also you know, for us to be able to share those with legislators as the list of people continues to expand. And then there will be a community canvas that Dustin's going to be leading in South Baltimore around the incinerator. Is that right, Dustin?
Yes, so we are going to Westport this Saturday at 1 p.m. If you can make it, please come join me. Pretty supportive crowd if you've never been out there. Maybe I'll get us ice cream, I don't know. But you got to come knock on doors with me first.
Fantastic. And so Dustin will put the link in the chat for folks who are interested.
And Sunday at 11 a.m.
Sunday, yes. Okay, got it. And then, Dustin, why do you think we just keep everybody in the same room and we'll just do the postcard writing together?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. So many of you, hopefully, should have received a letter from us with 4 postcards in your mail. And if you did not receive postcards but would like to, if you show up to the action on Friday, I'll have a bunch of extra postcards there and postcard stamps. If you're not able to do that, please fill out the form. If Dustin, you can put the form to the postcard request, and do fill that out like pretty immediately, because right now is the meaningful time for legislators to be getting these, and so you know, and it will take a couple days for those postcards to get to you. Great. So there's a couple of points that are really important for these postcards. One is to make sure to look up your legislator. If you don't, we can put the MyMGA link in the chat where you can look up your legislator, so you know their title, their name, and you can get their full mailing address as well. from their profile page on the MindGA website. And so the next thing is we are encouraging folks to focus on on asking legislators to oppose the building of a new gas plant, because this will be the worst outcome if there is enough incentives in the bill for the polluters to decide that they would like to build a new gas plant. That would be the worst outcome of this session. And so we need it to be as least appealing as possible for that to become a reality. We have some talking points that are included in a link that Dustin just submitted in the chat, postcard writing instructions.
I'm putting a new link.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong. My folder says everybody has access, so I don't know. There's something weird going on here. So Dustin will produce a new link, but thank you, Dustin. So there are two main points to hit on here for the talking points on no new gas that Brittany highlighted for us. One is that the bill is currently written expedites the permitting process and essentially cuts out any of the environmental justice provisions that are already in place for the permitting process for these projects. What I mean by that is it fast tracks and says we don't need to do any community listening sessions. We don't need to be holding any hearings. No town halls, no outreach needs to be done with the community. The community, whoever would be impacted, would not have an opportunity to voice their concerns. The second piece of it is that building out gas is much more expensive than battery or solar. So right now we're in a tight budget season for Maryland. Like, we need to be saving dollars where we reasonably can, and this is absolutely a place where our state could be saving a lot of money. So those are the 2 points that I would encourage folks to consider in their postcard writing. So we'll take, for folks who have the postcards with them, we'll take the next about that through the end of the evening to write those postcards, and Dustin and I are happy to answer questions. And if you don't have your postcards with you, we really encourage you to use this next 10 minutes just to write out for yourself what you would like to say and in your postcard, so that, you know, when you do get your hands on the postcard, you can basically just copy it and have it ready to go.
How do we start?
Amy, raise your hand.
And Mustafa, could we be next, because we got a lot going on here, so maybe after Annie.
Yeah. Annie,
Okay, I have a quick, thanks. In your first bullet point, when you're talking about the social cost of carbon being 425 million per year, for what? For a gas plant, or for what exactly is the 425 million?
Yeah, so it would be 425 million for the building of the 3.1 gigawatts of gas. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that question. Michael, you asked, would you suggest we also call offices? Absolutely. Please do call your legislators, and ask your legislators when you talk to them. You know, right now we're in this moment where it could advance to the floor, likely within the next 2 weeks, and so we don't have to. So now is a great time to call the legislators and to say, hey, even if you're not on the relevant committee, each committee actually has a whip on the committee, and the whips talk to leadership about where the votes are on these big bills. So you could ask them, say, like, hey, could you communicate to the whip for your committee and to leadership that you've got concerns. So if the whips hear that they're that you know, people, members of their committees are getting calls, and then the leadership is hearing it from their from delegates and state senators, then I think that will go a long way. it'll go a long way. And some of this is just some of your legislators, particularly the progressive ones, are wanting to do the right thing here, and they're wanting to fight. And being able to say that I got 5 or I got 10 calls in my office today from concerned constituents gives them what they need to go to leadership and just say, like, people actually really care about this.
Mustafa, can I have the floor for a moment?
Yeah, Susie, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say hello to everybody and greetings from, can you see everybody? Oops, where did we?
Hey!
So we have a group here and we're all, everybody show your postcards, our flags.
Yay.
So
Susie, what inspired you to do that? What inspired you to host this house party?
I can't remember who it was who I CCAN said somebody else had done this and I thought, sure, let's do it. So I've just invited people who were part of our climate lobby night from our district and some neighbors, and it's really cool. And we have more people who are going to be coming later, and then some other people are going to stop by and get postcards and do it. So we've got a really nice little group, and there is wine involved and chocolate cake. See, I didn't
That's
even tell them
amazing.
about the chocolate cake yet.
Oh my gosh.
He's been
Oh
talking.
my
Big.
gosh, you didn't tell them about the chocolate cake, and you got a great show right there. Got a whole crew.
So
Nice job,
anyway,
Susie.
we're gonna get back to it. And so I will sign up, but happy postcard writing. We're all sitting here working on our postcards. So I hope everybody has a great productive night.
Thanks so much, Susie.
Okay, bye.
Melanie, great question. Dustin, you want to answer it?
Yeah,
Question
so
in the chat?
each legislative district, there are 47 legislative districts in Maryland with 3 delegates and 1 senator. So, however, some of them are bifurcated or even trifurcated. So like 42C, so, or you may have an A, you may be on the B side or the A side of legislative district 47 or 43. So talk to, address them to your legislators. If you would like to mention, or if you'd like to reach out to one of the other legislators, so if you live in 43A and you'd like to write a postcard to Delegate Forbes in 43B, you can also do that, but to whomever you're addressing your postcard to, you want to make sure that they know which district you are in. So for that situation, I'm a resident of District 43A, but would also like to let you know Delegate Forbes and 43B, whatever you'd like to say.
Yeah, I don't think they care if it's not someone who can help you out.
Yeah,
But
well,
thank you for the explanation.
okay, thank you. What do you think, Mustafa? So you can, I would say you can do that if you would like to. You can do all 4, however you would like to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions that folks have? I know some folks might be busy writing.
I just put one in the chat.
Yeah, Annie, okay. Lisa, you are welcome to use your own postcard. That's absolutely fine, for sure. Okay, great. Would the proposed legislation for the gas plant would involve taxpayer funds paying for construction? It wouldn't be built by a private company or the utilities. Okay, yeah, so the utilities this money would be on the backs of taxpayers because the money would come from the state to build the gas plants. So that's why we're making the argument that cheaper for the state to be investing in building out battery storage and be building out solar and wind, and to be, providing incentives for the companies that can come in and do that to do that.
Great, thanks.
Absolutely.
And Jim, so you sent me a direct message. You have a letter for Senator King. I would say let Mustafa and I kind of review this tomorrow, just so that your letter, it's focused on the Renew Act. So I want to make sure that we have updated talking points for you.
Great,
We'll
thanks.
get back.
Appreciate it.
But no, this is awesome. You both did a really good job on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think my top line on that, Dustin, would be to say it's an opportunity to say thank you, because I mean, King voted for it, and to just reiterate that we need, once the study's done, we need to move forward with implementation. So it's a great opportunity to say thank you.
If you do have your postcards, please go ahead and get them out. If you have not received yours yet, please make sure, I just put the link in the chat, but they look like this. They're really cool. No new gas, stop this bill.
Yeah, and please do fill out if you need postcards, like really need this, for folks to submit that by Friday. Because this weekend, I think, will be the last time I'll send out postcards, just because they will lose their timeliness after that. How's it going? How's it going for folks? How's the writing going?
Good.
Great. You're also, if anybody wants to, you're welcome to, if you have postcards for yourself, you're welcome to use the form to request more postcards. Like if you want to give postcards to your neighbors or people that you know that will fill it out and send it. So you're welcome to request those, and we send it with postage to you. I think we're going to be getting out close to 400 postcards. That'd be great. I'm sorry, Aaron, I just see your question. Is CCAN still trying to drive emails to delegates and his offices through the No New Gas tool? Yes. We very actively doing that. So calling, emailing, great things for you all to do and to get your friends to do. Will slides in this presentation be available? Absolutely, Lisa. I will. Tomorrow I'll send out a follow-up email with the links, as well as a link to the recording and the slides. Absolutely. Any other questions that folks have? Justin, anything else you want to share?
I think that's just about it. I do like the it sounds like a big number, 400 postcards out to our wonderful friends in the General Assembly. They said, "Oh, we got enough postcards. You know, we're good. We're good." Um, I just heard more postcards, so I think we can oblige. We can help them out.
And actually, I'd have to do the math. I think it might be like 450 because I think for people that have already signed up to do the postcard writing, joining this event, I think it's about 150, and then we've got 300 more that are coming in that people are claiming. So, yeah. Wonderful. Well, thanks y'all so much. We encourage you to continue to show up. We know that there's a lot that's happening. I'm sure you all are like us and feeling the weight of the horrible things that are happening in our politics and everything being sort of thrown at us at once. And so we appreciate you all continuing to show up, both to hold Democrats accountable in your state, to do things that are good, hopefully, and to stop bad things that are happening. And I'm sure you all are showing up in many other ways to fight the very dangerous politics at our federal level right now. So appreciate all of you and for holding space tonight for us to organize together.
Do we have an extra 30 seconds for someone to show us their postcard? Can you tell us what you wrote?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Can someone show us? Linda, because I want to grab something. I really appreciate your comment, but I'll show you what I do. Give me 1 second. But can anyone read off their postcard to us?
I can read mine.
Awesome.
Dear Senator Wallstreicher, as your constituent, I remain gravely concerned about the possibility that this legislative session could result in a terrible outcome for the climate and our health, which would be the construction of a new gas plant. The information I've received about the evolution of SB 937 and HB 1035 suggests that this harmful provision remains alive and well. A new gas plant could derail our climate goals, be a budget buster, and would damage the health of local communities. Thank you. Barely fit all that in there.
Yeah.
Melanie,
That's
you
a
want to share
lot
yours?
for one post.
That was great, Eddie. Melanie, you want to share what you wrote?
I mean, I didn't write yet. I only addressed them so far.
Oh, okay, fantastic. That's okay. Thanks for sharing that, Eddie. Yeah, if anybody else is really wanting to share, happy to stay on another moment for somebody else to share.
And so Linda, just speaking on your comment, there's just so much stuff going on right now, and it seems like every single day it is like a deluge, a flood, just with everything that we have to deal with. But one, I had to go get a ladder to grab it. But one thing that I have that always kind of cheers me up a little bit is my limited edition Dang It doll. I don't know if anyone can see this. So every time it says, anytime something doesn't go well, here's a little Dang It doll. Just grab it firmly and find a place to whack it. There we go. So this is what I do. Anytime I hear a new executive order, anything like that, and then I feel a little bit better. So you know, it's just one of those things. You can't get them anymore, but It's one of my cherished possessions from my time in Las Vegas. So we all got to do what we can, but I'm really appreciative to have you all just coming together and making some real change with us. Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.